All right, let's talk about SRE, Site Reliability Engineering. Now, we all know it's more than just a job title, right? It's a whole different way of thinking. But how do you actually get that mindset? We're not going to do a 101 today. Nope. We're jumping straight into the deep end, pulling out years of wisdom from a really insightful conversation with SREs who've been there, in the trenches, and have the scars to prove it.
And you know, Effie Moselli from the Wikimedia Foundation puts it so well. SRE, it's a journey, a long, winding road. And yeah, it's packed with technical puzzles and crazy challenges, but what we're about to unpack is that the biggest lessons, they're often not in the code at all. It's a road with these amazing views. You gotta know where to look.
So that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. What are the lessons that actually stick, the ones that you carry with you? And here's the really cool part. What do you learn after you've turned off that on-call pager for the last time and you get to look back? That's what we're going to dig into by listening to folks who have been there, done that, and have a totally fresh perspective. Okay, so what's the first huge lesson that comes out of the trenches? Well, it's probably not what you're thinking. Turns out, being a successful SRE isn't just about being the smartest person in the room with a keyboard. It's about being an amazing communicator. I mean, this quote just completely reframes the job, doesn't it? Effie Moselli basically says communication isn't some fluffy soft skill. No, it's a core competency right up there with your technical chops. And it makes sense when you think about it. A super clear design doc, a really thoughtful postmortem, even just a helpful commit message. Those are the things that build resilient systems and resilient teams. You can't just write a script to fix bad communication. It just doesn't work that way.
So with that in mind, let's turn to this really unique group of experts, former SREs. You know, when people step away from a field, they get this clarity that you can only get with distance. They see which lessons actually last. So, let's meet them.
First up, we've got Dina Levitan. Now, after spending years deep in Google SRE, working on everything from ads to cloud, she took that SRE mindset and aimed it at some of the most complex problems out there. We're talking societal problems like the opioid crisis, and even founding a nonprofit to help with COVID vaccine distribution. I mean, wow. That's taking SRE thinking to a whole other level. Then there's Sarah Smollett. She was at Google for an incredible 17 years. She managed SRE teams for stuff we all use every day, like Google Calendar, and also super foundational things like Spanner. Just think about this. She watched Google explode from 5,000 employees to almost 200,000. So she has this amazing perspective on what it takes to scale not just the tech, but the people and the organization too. And we've also got Andrew Fong. His career path is fascinating. He went from being a hands-on SRE at places like YouTube and Dropbox, climbed the ladder to VP of infrastructure, and now he's a startup co-founder and CEO. So he really gets both sides of the coin, from the engineer getting paged at 3 a.m. to the exec making the big strategic calls.
And last but not least, Scott McFiggin. Get this, he was Facebook's very first full-time SRE hire. He was literally there on day one, building the whole thing from the ground up. After leading some huge projects there and at Dropbox, he's now a founder and a winemaker. Talk about a career change, right?
So with a panel like that, what did they actually learn? You know, across all of their completely different experiences, a few core mindsets just kept popping up over and over again. It's really about a specific way of looking at the world, a way of tackling problems that just becomes second nature when you're an SLE. A few key ideas really jumped out. First, this obsession with getting rid of single points of failure. Because let's face it, in any complex system, that's where the real trouble begins. Second, having a healthy dose of skepticism. You're always asking, okay, but how could this break? That's basically the SRE superpower. Then you've got first principles thinking, really breaking a problem down to its core instead of just slapping an old solution on it. And finally, a relentless focus on systems thinking. That means seeing the entire picture, that whole end-to-end flow from the user's perspective, not just the one little piece of code you're responsible for. But how do you actually learn to think like that? Well, one of the best teachers, believe it or not, is failure. Sarah Smollett has this great line, never let a good failure go to waste. See, postmortems aren't for pointing fingers. They're for digging deep into every single incident to find those golden nuggets of learning that make the whole system stronger for next time.
And here's a brilliant way to actually practice for failure. Dina Levitan talks about something called the Wheel of Misfortune. It's basically a disaster role-playing game for your team. The idea is simple. You get everyone together when things are totally fine, you dive deep into some hypothetical disaster, and you brainstorm how you'd respond. You practice when the stakes are zero, so that when a real emergency happens, everyone knows what to do and can just execute.
Andrew Fong gives us this really cool, kind of split-screen view of how an SRE grows. On one side, yeah, you've got the technical lessons you'd expect. But look at the other side. It's all about leadership, leading yourself, being optimistic, not cynical, staying curious. And that's a huge takeaway, right? To really become a top-tier SRE, you have to shift your focus from just managing systems to leading people. And that starts with leading yourself. And that brings us right to the human side of SRE. I mean, you can be the most brilliant technical mind on the planet, but if you don't have leadership skills, if you can't build strong relationships, and if you're not focused on real impact, your work is just stuck. This is the stuff that turns a great SRE into a true leader in the organization. So Scott McFiggin, the guy who started it all at Facebook, he basically gives us a blueprint for making a real impact. It really comes down to two big things, being proactive and being a partner. You build relationships across teams so you can get involved in roadmaps from the very beginning. And at the same time, you act as this smart gatekeeper, protecting the services you're responsible for. It's all about shifting from just putting out fires to actually designing reliability from the start.
And this quote. This is pure SRE gold right here. Why is it so critical to get involved early? Because honestly, trying to bolt on reliability after a service is already built is an absolute nightmare. It never works well. Real, solid reliability has to be designed in from the very first line of code. And for that to happen, SRE needs a seat at the table from day one, period.
And this is where it all kind of clicks into a bigger picture. Sarah Smollett makes this amazing point that these SRE principles, they're not just for software. I mean, think about it. Finding single points of failure, understanding how things work from start to finish, learning from mistakes without pointing fingers. You could apply that to almost any complex system. Healthcare, supply chains, you name it. It's this incredibly powerful, universal way of thinking.
So where do you go from here? Look, this deep dive conversation is really just the beginning. SRE is a living, breathing practice and a community, which means you're never really done learning. So here are a few ways you can keep your own journey going.
For a lot of people, the journey starts with those famous SRE books from Google, the ones that really kicked off this whole movement. But our veterans have a really important piece of advice. Read them, yes, but read them with a critical eye. Remember, what worked for Google's very specific culture might not work for you. The goal is not to just copy and paste their solutions. It's to really grasp the underlying principles and figure out how to apply them to your world. And then you gotta get connected. Go to events like SRECon if you can. Jump into the discussions happening on Reddit or on Slack. Check out some of the great podcasts out there. The SRE community is seriously amazing. It's so vibrant and people are super generous with what they know. So really, the best thing you can do is just dive in. Look, at the end of the day, all this advice from these veterans, it's like a gift. It's a map that's been drawn by people who have already walked the path. But it's just the map, it's not the destination. The real question now is for you. How are you going to take these lessons, use them, and then add your own experiences back into the mix for the next person? How will you help shape the future of reliability?